Warning, this video will contain spoilers for The Walking Dead Season 6, Episode 13, The Same Boat, so do be cautious as you go ahead and watch this video. What is going on, everyone? This is NinjaGeek here, and a quick disclaimer before we start today's video. I have a little bit of a cough, well, a lot of a cough right now. I just took cough medicine, so you probably won't hear it, hopefully not, and I can get through this commentary, so just be aware of that as you're going through and listening to my voice. Hopefully it doesn't sound too much different than what it normally sounds like, and hopefully I don't cough a lot, so I don't have to do a lot of voice editing, but we'll get right into today's Walking Dead video recap. So, the first thing that I enjoyed about this episode was the fact that they actually kind of brought back what happened in last week's episode where we saw the ending, but this time it was from a different perspective. So we get to see, between Paula's binoculars, what actually happened on their side of the fence versus last week at the end of the episode we got to see what happened on Rick's side, where it was like we don't really know who these people are, but then we kind of get drawn into Paula's group of saviors, who are obviously considered the bad people, but you never know because Rick did come in there and his group came in there and just kind of destroyed their whole group because they had to. Within this episode, we see a very effective first-person view because we see, of course, Maggie and Carol getting captured, and I think this is from Maggie's point of view, obviously from seeing after what happens when she just awakens to the zombie that is like standing right in front of her. But I feel like this is very effective because for the most part of it, while they're transitioning into where they're going to be going, you as the viewer can't see anything, as well as obviously the characters in the show, but you can't see anything because the camera's inside there and it's blocking off your vision, which I think makes you squint more, makes you pay more attention. It feels like you're actually in the action. Obviously that's what first person views are supposed to be doing, but with this one, I feel like it was more effective than a lot of the other previous ones because you actually, when they were covered and it showed that, you actually felt like you were being a part of that of the show too. When they first get to where they are, Carol starts hyperventilating, Maggie's getting concerned with what's actually going on, and then Carol picks up the rosary beads and holds them close to her as if, you know, she wants to find comfort within that. And I think that's a kind of different perspective, obviously, of what we've seen from previous Carols, because normally she's not like that. Now she's turned into this insane person who goes out there and just attacks everyone, and we're going to get into her kill counter afterwards, like later on in the episode when we see, and she actually mentions that, but I think that she's just putting on an act here, as well as Maggie is, because they know that they're in a dangerous situation. And even Maggie looks at Carol when she grabs the rosary beads, and she's just like looking at her like, is this Carol or is this somebody completely different? Because I think part of her is obviously she's scared because she could die at any second, but the other part is I think she's putting on that scared Carol act just to get them to lay off of her. If they know that she believes in that and just leave her be, versus her Carol now point of view where it's just like she can just destroy everything in sight. The same thing goes with Maggie, and now that Carol brought upon everyone there that Maggie's actually having a baby, and then everyone's like, well, why would you even think of doing that in this type of world? We see that continue on with Maggie, how she's essentially playing dead along with Carol, acting like the nice guys, trying to get them to divert from what they're actually going to do, because when she actually gets a chance to talk to Shell, the other girl that was with them, and she wants to know more about where they're actually held up, Maggie tries to divert the subject and try and get her to talk about her pasts and her family life to try and divert Shell from actually trying to get the information from Maggie. So I think that Maggie saw what Carol was doing, so then she did it as well. So now we actually end up finding out one of the major parts of the episode, probably the biggest part that we've learned in the whole series in a while, other than the fact, obviously, between the differentiating characters of Carol, between which one she wants to act like to protect herself. That's a major part in her religious side as well, but the fact that Malls, who is the old lady, if you didn't know, in the group, is always hacking on cigarettes every 5 minutes, she actually says this.
Sweetie, we are all Negan.
And Carol replies back with the same reply that I would have had, like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't understand. I really don't, because I personally obviously thought that Negan was an actual one person and the Saviors was his group, but now everyone's saying that they're all Negan. So has he like taught everyone to be are the saviors technically Negan? Like, are they all representing him? I'm not too entirely sure, but this is a big moment because now it's not like, oh, this one bad person with his group of saviors. It's apparently they're all representing Negan, as we can tell just from this one episode. So that's one of the major parts that I wanted to cover here within this review. Because Carol is becoming more of the person that she actually is now, she convinces Paula to actually make the trade with Rick, but there's a problem with that, in that Rick is actually obviously closer than he says he is, because there's less and less static as he's talking to Paula, and Paula picks up on this, realizes it's just she wants to set out with her group and try and find them and kill them. But then, obviously, Carol and Maggie end up getting together again. Carol breaks free, she helps Maggie break free, and they run into each other, like, again, in the same, obviously, building. And it's just like between the different people that's there. First, Miles is the first one to die. They take her out instantly, and then after that, it's Shell. And there's actually a big controversy thing that I don't know if it's gonna happen or not gonna happen. But obviously, we know Maggie's pregnant. Is she gonna not have a baby now because of that? You know, Shell sliced her stomach. I honestly don't know. It doesn't look like it, and she said that nothing is, it's not going to happen anymore to the end when she talks to Glenn for a little bit. But that was a very well in-depth scene that we saw. And then obviously we see the kind of character pull between Carol and Paula, because I think that they see themselves as similar people, and Carol actually wants her to just run free at the end. Maggie obviously wants to finish the job, kill everyone there, but the fact that Carol wants to let her go at the end, I think just sees symbolism in her, number one, herself, but the kill count that she's keeping between the different, obviously as we've seen in the previous episode of The Walking Dead, how she keeps a kill count with her, and she marks down. I think she sees the person that she's becoming and what she's capable of, and she can reduce that number in her mind, so she tries to do that, but it just doesn't end up working. But Maggie, on the other hand, wants to finish the job just like Rick would do, so she's more on like the Rick side. But Carol, obviously she's with Rick, but she sees herself as trying to lower that rate of what she's become. And like with every single other episode of The Walking Dead, the last 10 minutes of the show are probably some of the most intense scenes, because it keeps you on the edge of your seat to watch the next episode. Of course, this episode was pretty good all throughout, but usually at the last 10 minutes and on is when the actual meat and potatoes is of the episode. But, and here, let me just get to appreciate the fact that, obviously, Maggie and Carol haven't really worked together in their own episode, and they've actually said that together, like in an interview and stuff, they want to work more closely together, and I think this episode brought them together more, because we haven't really seen a lot of Carol lately, or Maggie, I guess, but now bringing them together in their basically own episode kind of showed more of each person's character and style of how they like to work things. But at the end, we see the slow motion between them, and I think that in their minds, seeing what they've just done, how they just like burned the people that tried obviously to get Paula's group of saviors, they burned them, they killed Paula's group of saviors, they're reflecting in their minds, and I think the slow motion kind of shows that, because it shows their thought process between of what's actually happening and how they're walking slow. I don't think it's just there as a placement to fill time in. I think that it was used purposely to show the actual effect on what all this had on their minds, especially on Carol's mind, since we know what has happened now and what she believes in and what she wants to reduce in herself and what she's actually capable of, like we have always been saying throughout the episode. As we now know, towards the end of the episode, when they actually, obviously everyone else is dead, but Primo's the only one alive, and Primo actually says, I'm Negan, we now know, obviously, that Negan is a representation of everyone, as said by Miles. But Rick doesn't know this, because he never heard the conversation between Carol. I don't even think Maggie knows this, because I don't think she heard the conversation, but Carol's the only one that knows this, and it really has a deep impact on her, because Rick, without hesitation, obviously, if you say you're Negan and you're looking for one person, it's like, oh, well, this is the bad guy. Without hesitation, he's like, I'm sorry, and just immediately cuts him out. He's just gone within the last, seconds, and then Carol's just standing there, and I feel like the symbolism in her is that she's obviously holding the rosary that she had within the episode, and it cut herself so it's like dripping blood, and I feel like that has an impact on her because she's the only one that knows that everyone apparently is Negan, so she knows that this wasn't the Negan, I guess you can say. And we have like a huge threat that not only that, but just because of what she's believed in and obviously what we talked about and what she's been through in her past and what she wants to become in the future, I feel like the bleeding rosary beads really symbolized what she was going through there in that moment. So, do you believe that Carol has, I guess in quotes, redeemed herself? Because she didn't really do anything bad, but the person that she's become, I just wasn't really a fan of it. She wasn't that person that she was back in season 1, and even neither was Rick or anything like that. I'm not trying to say because everyone changes, but I feel like she definitely has redeemed herself after she has learned what she's capable of, and I keep saying capable of because she really is a powerful woman, not just in what she can do, but her wise words of what she says to other people that convince them to do other things and convincing herself to do things. She's a very powerful person, and she could take on the role, as Maggie can as well, of leadership within the group, and I think that she has kind of redeemed herself in that way, that she is a person that can be capable of doing all of those things. But that is it for this week's episode of The Walking Dead Reviews. If you did enjoy, leave a like and subscribe for more content. As always, this series comes on every Monday after the show goes live on Sunday, so I hope you did all enjoy this week's episode. Okay. Gotta stop hacking like Miles over here. I feel like Miles. But anyways, that's it. I'll catch you on the next one. I'm out, and peace.